Welcome to the story of Everyman. Tonight we're going to have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Luis Castanon. I've known Luis for a few years now. I've been intrigued at some of your background and your success.
I'm like the most famous Mexican in Longview.
I think, yeah, you're pretty close, pretty close.
And I don't throw the M word lightly, but I am.
Were you born in the U.S. or?
I was born in Mexico.
Born in Mexico.
I migrated here when I was, I think 8, but I tell people 10.
Okay. Your parents, tell me a little bit about their life immigrating from Mexico to the U.S. What's that been like for them?
I remember for me, because I was a kid, and I remember my dad one day, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to Texas. I'll see you when I see you," type deal. And I was like, okay. Couldn't even tell you where Texas was on the map. I didn't know that Mexico and Texas were like, I don't know what a border town was.
Was he telling that to your mom and you, or was he just
like set us down, and he was like, "This isn't the life that I want for y'all." I grew up in Mexico. There's no middle class. You're poor. Poor people could never succeed in life. It's not like you can go from poor to middle class,
right,
to wealthy.
There's not even
nothing.
It doesn't even exist.
No.
Like you just know this is where you're gonna be.
This
your whole
is
life.
it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
your kids are going. There's no the Mexican dream like we have the American dream.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And that's why you have so many people that join the cartel, because when your average salary is $100 a month, and then you have the cartel.
Yeah.
Hey, you can make $100 a day.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't, to provide for their family?
It's
Yeah.
not even a question.
So when my dad came to Texas, he walked the desert for, I think, 3 days. It's just something he doesn't really talk about openly.
Yeah.
He did the walk the desert with the coyotes, and he ended up in Texas. And you think about it, back then, this was,
Yeah.
28 years ago probably.
Okay.
No
It's a
phones.
whole different. It's a different time.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different time.
No cell phones, no social media. There's like no Facebook Messenger. Hey, I made it.
Right.
Drop me a pin. I mean, none of that stuff. So it's like, we, in good faith, we just took my dad's word for it that, hey, when I make it, you guys are coming with me.
So he immigrated, and then you stayed behind.
My mom
and he was going to come back and get you.
My sister was about 6 or 7 months at the time, newborn. My mom and myself. So it's like life couldn't get any worse. But when the main provider of the family leaves, life gets worse.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think my dad was like 22 at the time when he left. So you can imagine, like, as a 22-year-old, like, making that sacrifice
For his
your
family. Yeah.
to come here. So not only that, it's just the journey part of it. It's like, okay, you have a 50-50 chance of making it across that desert, 120-degree weather,
Yeah.
dehydrated, no food, just whatever you have on your back. That's it.
And again,
Insane.
remember, there's no communication was different then. So if something didn't happen, who knew how long it would take for you to find out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, maybe that's when my faith started.
Yeah.
Heck, I don't know. It was just like, we were just hopeful that my dad has been a man of his word
Yeah.
from that very day.
I was going to ask that. Like, how did you and your mom, or you and your family, stay committed in that time that he was gone? Like, we got to wait. We
Yeah.
know he's going to do something.
Yeah. My mom, like, I knew she was raising me and my little sister, and I think she hid the stress pretty well, because it's not like, hey, dad's going to the store to buy cigarettes and dad never comes back.
Right.
This was like, if dad doesn't come back, I'm next in line.
And did you step up?
I had to.
Yeah.
I'm 8 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you stepped up and you were like, I'm the man of the
what
house.
I could.
Yeah.
Whatever that looked like.
Yeah. Right.
And I knew my mom hit it very well. And it's just one of those things that, to this day, they still don't talk about it.
The journey? You're talking about the journey?
My dad, every now and then, he'll kind of slip up and be like, you drink that hot water. I drink water from a puddle
Yeah.
with tadpoles in it.
Absolutely.
And then, and then he'll kind of brush it off. But, those are things that are
Yeah.
engraved in his memory.
Right.
I'll never be able to make a sacrifice like that. I mean, to me, making a sacrifice for my family is like waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning and make sure that my kids are dressed and had breakfast and they're in school before the tardy bell rings.
Right.
That's about the hardest sacrifice I'll have to make.
Having seen some of it, that you appreciate now, how you don't have to do that hard of a sacrifice. So fast forward to, okay, so you fast forward, you're here in the U.S., you go to school. Did you know English when you started school?
Dude, I couldn't even tell you where Texas was on the map.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that Mexico and Texas were like right next
Right.
to each other, I just knew one day my mom got a message. I don't know how she got it. And she was like, hey, we didn't have anything. So it's not like, get your stuff, we're leaving. It was like, we're leaving.
Yeah.
And I remember we went to like some kind of secondhand store and she bought me like a suit jacket with the tie. And I was all dressed up with shorts, just.
Here in the U.S. or
No,
what?
in Mexico.
In Mexico.
Yeah. And she was like, we're going to Texas. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. I'm like, what's Texas? And man, we get to the airport. We get on the plane.
Oh, so you flew.
Man, we landed in DFW in January. We were not prepared.
You had your shorts on,
Yeah, I had shorts and like a suit jacket and a tie.
looking fresh.
It's interesting that you can remember
All
that.
ashy, probably. Like, I don't remember. Anyways, and then like next thing you know, we landed out of all places, DFW.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's big.
And you know how crazy DFW
Oh,
is. Back then there was just payphones.
Right.
We landed at the wrong terminal.
Oh no.
It's freezing. We don't speak English. We didn't know what to do.
Your vocabulary is really, really good. Tell me about, like, how did you get to learning English and education?
I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I got here, I was in third grade. There wasn't really ESL classes back then.
Oh no.
They put me in the back of a classroom with some headphones, not as fancy as these, and a tape player, and they just hit play. And for hours, I was just like listening to tapes and sentences, and so it was just one of those things. Like you had to
Yeah.
adapt quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you practice it a lot?
My cousins were here already, so I would practice with them, but they would make fun of me. I hated it, and I had a chili bowl. Man,
Oh,
like
my
I'm telling you, I was just that Mexican kid that just like had no style, had the Walmart shoes.
Yeah. I know, man. I grew up a little bit the same. There's a story that I know I've heard you tell a little bit about your mom, because your mom plays a big role in your life.
Yeah.
Right. I know that you had an interesting childhood in Longview, and she was always taking up for you. And I remember you telling us a little bit about her going to the police department and vouching for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Dude, my mom was like, my mom is like, when they say from the south side of the kingdom, like,
Yeah.
my mom was the first one to give her life to Christ. And when I saw that change in her, that's when I was like, maybe this Jesus guy is like legit,
Yeah.
because I see what he did for my mom. My childhood in Longview, my childhood in Mexico was pretty traumatic, because I'm like hustling in the streets, selling like empanadas and, like, so when we moved here, like, man, I had that mentality in me, I'm like, man, I'm not going to school.
I think there's something that a lot of people are missing in terms of like just being able to walk up to somebody and say, hey, do you want to buy something or something? Whether it be legitimate or illegitimate, I think there's a personality trait that says, hey, I got to do this, and just walk up to somebody, hey, you want to buy this? But you said you had already kind of had that in Mexico.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was running the streets at 8 years old. It took me a little bit, but once I got the hang of it, I'm like, man, I would see all these, these white kids, and like, no, don't eat that sugar, don't eat chocolate, don't eat this, don't eat that. Man, I was like, bro, I got a Snickers bar. I'll sell it to you for $1. Yeah, here. And then I saw that as an opportunity. I'm like, man, you're paying $1 for a Snickers bar. I'm paying 25 cents. Bring me one tomorrow. Man, next thing you know, I have a backpack full of candy. The candy man. Yeah. And I was selling all these white kids. I was selling like candy to them, and they couldn't have candy at home. And then I think that just kind of amplified, and I just started doing things that I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. I never got into the hustle, and I did grow up in poverty. I just got jobs. Like I got jobs where you got paid under the table.
Yeah.
So, but I never got into a hustle. And I think, but I did have friends that did that. And you kind of see, I guess, coming up in poverty, you kind of see, I got to do what I got to do to take care of myself, whatever that is. And, some people end up in bad situations as a result. And some people use it as a stepping stone to get to where they need to get.
Yeah, oh, plenty of times. But like my biggest example of like my mom, like I told you, my mom is gangster, man. Like my mom will take one of those machine guns and just clean the house to protect her
Yeah,
family.
it's true.
But when she gave her life to Christ, I saw this strong woman break,
Yeah.
in an altar. And to me, that was like what I saw kind of planted the seed. Like, hey, this is legit.
Yeah.
Like this woman right here, like, carried me and my sister for a year while my dad was gone. I'll never forget one time another one of my crazy stories. I was on my way to the sheriff's station, man, and my mom was behind the sheriff. I was in the back seat. And
So you weren't going to like in your own car. You were riding
I was
with
in the
them.
back seat, man. I was in the back seat.
Okay.
And I was taking that trip. And the cop was like, hey, like, you got to tell your mom, like, she's got to go.
She's got to chill out.
I was like, let me out, I will. He was like, no, I'm not letting you out. You're gonna run. I was like, no, okay. So we get to the station, and I was like, let me talk to my mom, like,
Yeah.
let me just get her to calm down. And he's like talking to her, and I'm talking to her, and he was like, miss, you gotta go. Like, he's got to see the judge. Like, this is a process. Like, he just doesn't. She's like, no, you're gonna let him go right now, or I'm gonna sit here and pray till he is gone. And this is a true story, man. Like, I don't even know how this happened. Anyways, he's like, nope, not happening. Takes me
Yeah.
inside. I'm sitting down in this little metal bench, and I'm waiting for my turn. And I see him, and he's just like pacing, just back and forth. And he comes up to me, and he's like, your mom's still outside. I'm like, oh, I don't know. He was like, she is. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, she's not going anywhere. And he was like, well, I was like, I'll explain it to her. She's not going anywhere. Like, at this point, I don't know what to tell you. And anyways, he makes a phone call, and he's like, you've got to go. I'm like, okay, I will when my time is. He's like, no, like right now. You got to go. And he was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't want no part of this, but you are not going to be here. You got to go. He was like, we'll figure this out later.
Yeah.
And he kicks me out of the station, and I'm just like, closes the door behind me, and my mom was like, what happened? I was like, I don't know. She was like, let's go. I'm like, let's go.
She was praying.
That's it.
Interesting. So tell me about your business. What do you do, Luis?
I'm in construction, sadly. I'm slowly getting out of that phase, and I'm getting more into like the food industry. I'm opening up a restaurant in town, and we're going to sell tacos, simple menu, tacos, quesadillas. And man, like in the Hispanic family, and I learned this a lot from the Pittman's Tacos Goya. Like, they have, man, like, I've always watched their model and how they do things, and I wish more people would just stop the jealousy and the hatred and just sit down and see how people operate.
Yeah.
And man, like, I saw what they do for each other as a family. We don't inherit anything when dad dies or when mom dies. We inherit debt.
Yes.
There's no generational wealth.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to help you. You're lucky if you have life insurance. You're lucky if you have a will, a testament. You're lucky if you have anything when something happens to the breadwinner. And I think it's something that we lack as a Hispanic culture.
Mm-hmm.
We work our butts off, but then at the end of our life, we don't have anything. We don't leave anything behind.
Right.
And that's something that I've been big on, that I've seen in American families. People think that, hey, you come into this country, especially with election time, you come into this country, here's a phone, here's a checkbook, here's food stamps. Man, I can tell you, my mom and dad have, and my dad smells like the river probably still to this day. I mean, my dad has never got a handout from the government.
Right.
Ever. And if they are giving handouts and checks, and I don't know where they're getting them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. The
Yeah.
whole time I've been here. My mom, I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Misconceptions. Absolutely.
You know?
So
And maybe, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying it didn't happen with us.
Yeah.
You know?
I know I did. Well, I don't know if it was legal or not, but I know I did. I remember running to grab that big block of cheese on Wednesdays from. So there was. I lived in a small town, and every Wednesday, at the park, on the stage, there's a stage in the park, and they would hand out all the stuff, and my mom would send me to go grab that cheese, that big block of cheese. And maybe it wasn't
That's what you
like
had to
an
do.
official handout. It was just like for whoever needed it.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But there's, like, Longview, there's a whole side of Longview that people don't even know exists.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what
I
you're
mean,
talking
it's
about.
just like, I mean, there's so many people that, like, well, look at Mauberley, for example, the church, one of the biggest church in this town. They started off on Mauberley Avenue. That's the reason why they get the name Mauberley. But then they got to the point where they're like, hey, we don't want to be on
In
this
that
side
area,
of town
yeah.
because it's dangerous. Okay, first of all, the whole gospel itself is based on persecution and, you know,
Yeah.
reaching the lost. So people have this idea that once you cross 80 to the south side, you know, lock your doors, roll your windows up, be ready. There's some truth behind it, you know?
Yep.
But there's a whole side of Longview that people hear about that they
Yeah.
when I was in high school and I would tell people, man, you live on the south side? What's it
Yeah.
like over there? Like, is it really like, do you really hear gunshots at night?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I got to a point in life when I can provide for not just my family, but my parents, I gave them options. Hey, Mom, like, I'm looking at getting y'all out of the south side. These are the options. Where do you want to be? I want to stay here.
Along with that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's such a closer sense of community in areas like that than there are in other areas where you may
Yeah.
not see your neighbor for the 10 years that you live next to him.
Right.
Or you may
Yeah.
not even got to talk to him.
Yep.
On the south side, man,
Yeah.
your kid acts up, I'm going to give him a whooping, and then I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah. No, and man, they would walk to the Dollar General, to Super One. And I was like, Mom, like, we can move to Hallsville. We can move to Spring Hill. We can move to North Longview. Like, no. Find me some land on the south side where I can still walk to Super One at 10 o'clock at night and feel safe.
Yeah. I run a local Facebook group called All Things Longview. You posted about your restaurant. What was the name of it again?
Patio 903.
Patio 903. And you did a story in a journal, I think. What was the name of that journal?
East Texas View magazine. It went crazy. It was
Yeah.
it's their biggest published story that they've had.
And we shared that story in All Things Longview, and it got. I didn't expect it to get the reviews that it got, or the that large of a positive response. It was probably at that time,
Yeah.
probably the biggest response in the group.
Thank you.
Tons of people want this, right?
Yeah.
Great location. The food, like what you're offering, is what people want, right? The atmosphere. So we're still waiting on it. How close are you thinking that we're looking at?
We're shooting for let me see, it's August. We're shooting for like the end of September.
Okay. Good.
Awesome.
Good.
I'm not a restaurant guru, so a lot of it is just me with my own mistakes,
Kind of learning.
learning
Yeah.
as I go, you know, for sure.
I'm excited for you for that.
And, you know, of course, all that, there's love and then there's hate, you know, always, there's always
Yeah.
that.
Right.
I want to say thank you for sharing your story. You know, it gives people like me grace for, you know, in where I come from, in my background. So I think that that's super important to be honest and open about your background, because that's just who you are and who you're going to be, and the growth in yourself through the years to come. So I think that that's just awesome.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, there are people that will take your own testimony and use it against you.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
when you're open and you're public about things that you've gone through, I mean, there's not a whole lot that they can turn
Yeah.
against you, but they will.
Yeah.
You know,
They'll
and-
always try that. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I've lost certain friends.
I don't think that you lost them. I think God removed them for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, like they
absolutely.
say, here are the conversations that we didn't hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're starting a restaurant or if you're starting a podcast. You are going to lose people,
That's right. Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And you're going to gain some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to do great things. I think you're going to do great things for Longview.
Yeah.
Keep going in the direction that you're going. Well, Luis, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the story of Everyman. We will talk to you soon.